On April 9th, the British began a massive offensive on German positions east of the city of Arras. During the first 2 days of the campaign, the Allies advanced almost 6 kilometers, the greatest progress made by the Allies in a single day since the beginning of the war. It was during this same attack that the Canadian Army distinguished itself with the capture of Vimy Ridge, a major German stronghold. On April 14th, the Newfoundland and Essex regiments were scheduled to continue the Allied advance near Monchy. The plan called for the 87th and 88th Brigades to capture a strategic high point called Infantry Hill just east of the village. As the time neared for the offensive to begin, the commanders realized that the 87th Brigade would not be ready in time. The decision was made not to delay the attack. The Newfoundland and Essex regiments would be sent in alone. The Allied barrage began at 5:15 a.m. At 5:30 a.m., the Newfoundland Regiment began to advance toward Shrapnel Trench behind a creeping barrage. C and D companies led the attack. The men soon reached their first objective, Shrapnel Trench, which was mostly deserted, so they proceeded quickly to Infantry Hill. As they advanced, A Company set up machine gun positions to the south of Infantry Hill. These posts would be the regiment's only protection on its right flank. The Essex, advancing on the north side of the hill, protected the left. By 7:30 a.m., the fighting was over. Infantry Hill had been taken. With the Essex to the north and the Newfoundland Regiment to the south, the Allies now held a strategic position. However, the position also formed a salient, leaving the regiments exposed on 3 sides.
At 8 o'clock, before we had much of a chance to dig in, the Germans began their counterattack. It wasn't good.
The result was inevitable. The Germans quickly surrounded the regiments, cutting them off from Monchy. After fierce fighting, many of the Essex and Newfoundland men were either dead or captured. Some of the wounded tried to make their way back right away, while others sought shelter from the enemy, planning to retreat after dark.
I'd been hit in the leg. All of my buddies on the gun were dead. I waited till dark and started crawling. My pack was too heavy, so I cut it off, and I only took a few bombs with me. I didn't make it to the trench that night, so I had to spend another day in no man's land. It was the next night before I made it back.
The Germans then turned their attention to Monchy.
I was at battalion headquarters. A runner came in and reported the situation. We had lost the hill, and about 300 Germans were headed our way. The colonel and Captain Keegan got all hands together and led us out to the front. I suppose there were only about 20 of us. We crawled on our hands and knees and made our way to a little ditch by a hedge, about 200 feet from the town wall. Only 9 of us actually made it to the hedge. We immediately opened fire on the Germans. I suppose they thought there were more of us than there actually were. We didn't have much ammunition. We scavenged guns and bullets along the way, including those of the dead, so we had to make sure that every bullet counted. I tell you, there was some great sharpshooting that day.
It was enough to hold off the German counterattack. The British official history of the battle recorded that this small band of men represented all that stood between the Germans and Monchy, one of the most vital positions on the whole battlefield. However, the Newfoundland Regiment's losses were heavy that day. More Newfoundlanders and Labradorians were lost in the fighting at Monchy than in any other battle except Beaumont-Hamel. In total, 166 men of the Newfoundland Regiment had been killed, 141 wounded, and 150 taken prisoner. For the second time in the war, the regiment had been decimated.